Hi, I'm Ann. I'm here at the Fin and Feather. I'm going to tie one of Kenny Abrames' famous patterns, a flatwing fly. And this fly is great for striper fishing. It's a great fly to swing in the current. And it also can be a really beautiful fly, and it's fun because you can use all different color combinations. It's kind of it reminds me of impressionistic painting. So let's just get into it. So the first thing you want is a wide gap hook. I'm going to use a Kona 2/0. Okay. And I'm going to use some saltwater thread. And I just put on a base layer of thread. And then, so you use these long hackles. They're like this. And for the tail. And you need a good pillow or platform for the hackles. Oh, they'll go all over the place. And you want to sort of tie the hackles flat and make it as neat as possible. It's not absolutely necessary, but it's one of those things. So, I actually have some white bucktail. I groom it by pulling out the short pieces, and then I hold the ends and I position the tips. Okay, so I want a natural kind of a natural end, because I don't like it when all the bucktail are flat like that across, like 90 degrees. So this is almost like a paintbrush type tip. And I actually use my little bucket boss that has water in it, and I groom the bucktail and actually the peacock herl by dipping it in the water. And you see that? It kind of gets the bucktail to behave a little bit. So I'm going to trim that, sorry. I'm not used to tying in front of a camera. And I'm going to place that about in the middle of the hook shank and secure it, but not too tightly. If you pull down too tightly, you know you get that flare. Okay, and I'm going to sort of pinch down with your fingernail. Your fingernail is one of the best tools you can use when you're tying flies. You can get that material to roll around. Now, this is going to be sort of right on top, but a little bit flat right there. That's part of the platform. The next part of the platform, some people take the fluff and make a little, like a dubbing pillow, and make that their platform. I like to use some of these shorter feathers that curve up a little bit, and they're sort of hard to find. You want to find the perfect feather. This is one feather I will be particular about. Can you see it has a little bit of a curve? So it's going to be curved down, it's going to come up, and it's going to be part of the platform for the hackle. See that? And if it starts to turn on you, use that fingernail to get it back totally horizontal or flat. And I like to tie it in with the fluff because that helps the platform as well. And then I'm going to trim it, and I'm going to wrap that now a little tighter. And I actually am going to go a little further and put some thin, hard as hull here, just to give it a little security so it doesn't roll. Right? Nothing's worse when your whole tail starts to roll. Alright, so as with most flies, you start with lighter colors first. And now I'm going to go for a medium-sized feather. Now this is a good way to look for your feathers. You take this and you bend the skin so you can look at the feathers. So I'm going to look for medium length.
The next one has thicker stuff, depending on what you tie.
It's a little bit hard on this hackle.
I'll have to do like white, because then I can
Okay.
do what I want with it, depending on.
Get as close to it as I can. Alright,
Right.
I got
If I
one.
want to change the color of
It's
it.
close enough. It's not real long.
Lock it.
See that?
Lock it and go.
And I like the fluff. I like to tie in with the fluff. It helps make that platform again and anchor that feather so that it stays flat. So you can see I start to have a nice little fluffy spot right here at the end of the hook shank. Now the key also is not to make too many wraps. You don't need to make so many wraps that then you get this huge bulky thing. Just enough medium wraps to hold that, because there's more coming. And this is what I might start to tie in some flashabou. And I like just, you know, you can use any color flashabou. I just like 2 or 3 pieces at a time that I'm going to fold over. And I like a lot of neutrals to start. Neutral colors, opalescence. And just tie that, fold that over, just anchor it in there. Okay? Now then I'm going to go to the next lightest color, which is pink. So many flies. I don't know, they just fish better with a pink in it, even if it's just a little bit of pink. And if you look at fish, you look at bait fish, you know they have that opalescence. There's always pink in there. Alright, so kind of like a medium length feather again. This flatwing's not going to be super long. I mean, you can make them this long, you will catch fish. They get a little bit trickier to throw, but you can do it. Now when you're fishing these, you want to make sure you let your back cast open up so they don't foul, because these could foul. You're going to slow down that back cast and let it just open all the way up. And that's true for any fly that's susceptible to fouling. But the best thing about these, there's unbelievable movement in the water. You will become addicted to all different size flatwings. Okay. I might put on another pink, so I'm going to look for a little bit longer one this time. And I love this hackle actually, because it has some variations here in the color. It actually makes it more realistic in my mind. Okay, this one's a little longer. It's a little thick compared to some of the other ones, but now I'm also gonna trim this one a little early because it's a little bit unwieldy. But again, I love that fluff right there. It makes it easier to tie it in flat. And if you think it's moving around a little bit, use a little bit of this to anchor it in. This is the hardest herl penetrator, and it's thin. It's not very viscous, so it goes all the way through the material, which is important when you have this many hackles that you're working with. I'm going to go with the chartreuse next. Okay. Now these aren't super long, but I am absolutely in love with this particular chartreuse. It's more of a yellowy chartreuse. It's a true yellow-green chartreuse. And it will be a little tricky to find a long one here. But I have some grizzly chartreuse that'll accent this nicely. Oh, and then you know the way you pull it and pop them off, right? You don't have to cut feathers. love pink and chartreuse together. I'm actually going to trim this one a little bit first too. I think I'm going to put some flashabou in. It doesn't really matter on the order. I mean, some people are really particular when they tie patterns about the order of things, and I think with fresh water it might be more important. With saltwater, you get to make some of the decisions on the fly. So for this one, I'm not going to double it over because I want it to be long, and I'm just going to anchor this down. And now this flashabou is a little flashier. It's always a difficult decision to know how much flash to use. Sometimes the fish, they don't even like a lot of flash. If you're super clear water, you might want to back off on the flash. But if you're in a mucky estuary, you might need that flash. Okay? Alright. I'm going to just do one of those. And then I'm going to throw in, this is a really bright tomato orange red. One of my favorites for an accent. And it's got these really skinny long hackles, but they actually make nice accent feathers. And I will say this, when I tie a couple of these at once, sometimes I pluck a bunch of feathers ahead of time, and then I just use the feathers like as if they were paint on a palette. Because you can spend a lot of time like looking through your saddles for the perfect feather, and actually by the end of it you might be like a little bit tired of looking for the right feather. Sometimes it interferes with the creative process. Everybody has their own style, that's for sure. Okay, so I'm just going to use one of those. And again, I don't even know how many hackles I would use necessarily. I'm just sort of going by feel. If you feel like you need a pattern right away, there are lots of books and sources. Kenny Abrames' books will tell you exactly what colors to use and how many feathers to use, and even in some instances how many pieces of bucktail hairs to use. And that's a great way to learn a lot of times, to be really specific. The best way to learn, I think, is just to keep trying things. So I'm going to try another piece of the clear, sort of pearlescent flashabou. So you can hear the customers in the back talking. It's happily a busy day here at the shop. It's a little bit rainy and overcast. You always get more customers in. Right, Mike?
That's what we're hoping. People come in.
And then sometimes I'll use the
People
water.
come in and say, yep, here we go.
That's right. I use the water, wet my fingers, and just groom those feathers a little bit. Groom the flash. Check it out. Looks like it's coming along nicely. I'm going to throw in some blue for accent. Again, this is a little bit thicker than I like, but I absolutely love this color. I mean, ideally I'd like a feather like a little bit slimmer than that right here, but this is pretty close. And then if they're too slim, that's a whole other story. You see a lot of hackle that's just too slim. You can still work with it, but for this pattern, and you see I have quite a platform now. And we're going to cover this with body braid. Okay, so we're almost done with the tail. Might throw in another bit of flash. I like these multicolored flash for when I'm traveling, because it has a bunch of different colors in one sachet, whatever. Oh, that is a mess. That's a hot mess right there.
Yeah, always the mount first, and, well, because what you wanna do is add a mount, then okay.
Usually I double things over, but these flies are so long, and if your flash isn't super long, you might just want to not double it over. And then you kind of have to pay attention to what you're doing. Alright. That's about right. Take a look at it. Make sure you're not rolled over, because if you're right-handed and you're rolling this way, the materials tend to rotate with the way you're tying, with the direction you're tying. So this is some awesome grizzly chartreuse, and there's nothing like some nice grizzly to accent your pattern. And also, fish love grizzly. I'm actually going to go crazy and tie 2 in at a time. Is that even allowed? I don't know. Okay, so it might look like a lot, but you'll see once it's done. So this is just the tail, but we'll be tying a collar, a throat, a top, and topping. So it's quite an involved pattern. And I'm going to start to anchor this more. It looks pretty flat. Looks like a pretty good shape. Just going to trim that. Okay. And add a little bit of that. Hard as hull. Alright. Okay, now, there are different ways to put the body braid on. I do have a rotary vise, and I should put the braid on and use the rotary vise, but I don't. It doesn't matter. But it will take more braid than you think, because you're going to wrap around this thick part. And I'll show you what I also was taught to do. So, I don't know if you can see this with the camera. There are these bends in the flat body braid. And so I'm going to trim it just below the bend. And I am going to wet the end and thread the eye. And usually I use a little wax, but I don't have it. And that helps close up that little gap in the eye, so that your tippet doesn't get stuck in there. And that's a trick I learned from Steve Cook. And now I'm going to first bring the body braid back on top of the hook shank and anchor that. Tie those little pieces down. They'll also get covered. And then I'm going to wrap forward. Some people like to build up more of a body, so they might not trim their hackles till they're, they might trim the hackles way up here instead of back here. But I like to have a slimmer body when I get towards the eye. Okay. Then I'm going to just anchor that and trim it. Oops. And I'm going to put a little bit of this. Some people, some people use nail polish, or you might even use UV Cure epoxy to bulletproof the body braid, because sometimes the body braid will, if you're fishing near rocks, will wear and tear and unravel, and then your whole fly unravels. But I just put a little bit of extra lacquer on there. Okay, now that's the tail and the body. That was involved. Now, what's next is also really important, because you have to decide, are you going to continue with this? So this, obviously I have a lot of feathers on here. You can tie 1 feather flatwings or 2 feather flatwings and make a sand eel pattern and tie everything very sparsely. This one is going to be more of herring size, bunker size, in terms of opaqueness, I don't know, whatever that word is. And, you know, some people want to tie heavy, some people want to tie sparsely, depends. So I'm sort of tying in between here. So the next thing I like to do is look at the fly, see where I am, and then decide on bucktail. I have different colors here, and sometimes I like to use color blocks and solids. Sometimes I blend. It's really up to you. I think I'm going to do a little bit of a blend. So I'm going to look for some bucktail that's not too wavy. Wavy's great. Wavy's great. Wavy moves water. For this pattern, it's a little bit softer and longer, and it's always great to find the long bucktail whenever you can. And I'm going to use, and then you look at your fly and say, well, what do I want to use? Again, I believe just on a mixture. Using a mixture is great. So I'm going to take a little bit of this yellow chartreuse, and I'm going to put that down. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of this coral type to complement my orange. And then I'll groom everything together. And a little bit of this blue, like a turquoise blue. And I like to have the pink in there. And I'm going to use white for the underside. But you know it's cool to do a light pink or an orange for the underside too. That's really neat. So the thing is, you never know what you're going to like till you tie it. So it's a good thing to just try a bunch of different things. Alright, so now I've got a nice bunch of different colors. Now I'm going to groom these, get the short pieces out so I hold the tips, and just pull out the stragglers. And then look at it, hold this. And you can save the little pieces for freshwater patterns or for a squid pattern if you like. And then I'm going to hold it, oh, this is hard to see, like this, and pull the bottoms, and I'm going to blend, and I'm going to let go, right? And you might get a little static. This is hard to show like this. Okay, so pull and blend, pull and blend.